Good morning, Mark.
Morning,
You've asked
Michael.
me to call you Mark.
Perfect.
Welcome to Uganda. You said you've been here, back and forth for the last 2 years, is it?
Yeah, well, the Alpha 10 Group bought CMC in April 2014, so it was a public company, and we then became a private company. So I've been coming and going. I think this is probably my 15th trip to Uganda, second in a week.
Okay, second in a week. Oh, okay. Frequent flyer, getting all those miles.
Well, yeah, on KQ, if we get on board.
Well, tell us about Cooper Motor Corporation in Uganda. It has been around for about 66 years.
Yeah, it has, and it's had a very difficult 6 or 7 years, certainly under the former shareholders, of a lot of boardroom disputes, and the clarity and the direction of the company was not clear. So the Alpha 10 Group, headquartered in Dubai, we've got 45,000 people. We are represented in 32 countries, and we've got 70 nationalities. So we're very broad, and we felt, and the shareholder felt, Omar Alpha 10, that Africa was his China. And we decided to make an investment back in 2014, and it's an investment that we're very pleased we made.
Okay, so tell us more about this investment. What are your products and what are your services?
Well, we've got 3 channels really. We've got passenger cars, so we've got the mighty Blue Oval by way of Ford, that we think today maybe is the best brand in Africa.
And we have some pictures on the screen
there. Is no
there.
question about that. Okay. Secondly, behind that we've got Suzuki, so very much Japanese DOA and DNA, and really appeals a lot to the Asian paternity. Vitara, good product, tested over a long period of time. And then we've got Mazda, that's quirky. It's kind of not volume, but it's not luxury, but it very much sits in the middle of the two. We've then got an HCV brand by way of MAN, that's the sister of Volkswagen. And then we've got Aisha, which is competing head to head with brands like Ashok Leyland and Tata. And then finally we've got the Blue Tractor, synonymous with many generations, New Holland. So we've got a very diverse portfolio of products. Okay,
which is great to know. But you've been here, and I'm sure you see most of the cars that we drive here, and most of the cars we drive are used cars. You have a very niche, your market it's a very niche market, I would say. Yeah. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right, Mabel. And the one plus about Uganda is that it's one of the only it is the only East African market that is showing positive growth year on year. Kenya's down 31% in the first half, Tanzania's down 36% in the first half, but Uganda's up. The problem we've got in Uganda is very simple, the importation of used cars. It is the main event, and what we need to do is to narrow the number of years down, possibly to 5, and then eventually, hopefully, it can become a new car market, because the problem that we've got is getting the entry buyer into a new car, because what they want is the most for their buck. And the most for their buck fundamentally will be a used import, not necessarily the right choice.
Would you reduce the prices of a new car, for instance? Because I imagine with a new car, you can get maybe 3 or 4 used cars for the same price.
Well, probably not quite as many as that. That's probably an exaggeration, but we see it like this. We own one of the largest manufacturing plants in East Africa, in Thika, near Nairobi, with the Kenyan government. And what we want to do is produce small cars that we can then send out to Uganda and send them at considerably less cost because of the duty structure and the savings.
Produce in Kenya?
Absolutely. And we can then drive them across and we can sell them here, and that's what we want. So we're appealing really to enterprise industrialization, I guess the Ugandan revenue authorities, that there's a balance, because they've got to make the money by way of imports, and if it's from used at the moment, what we're saying is how can we shift that to new cars, because new cars, Mabel, they're safe, they come with a warranty, typically 3 years. They are very much participative in asset financing. Banks like to finance used cars. And let's be honest.
Used cars or new cars?
New cars, sorry, and used. And for the consumer, other than a home, it is probably the biggest purchase that they'll ever make. So they've got to be proud of what they're purchasing. They fundamentally, it's an asset for them, and rightly so.
Well, we've seen some companies in the past, I probably won't mention them here, recalling new cars that are sent to the American markets because of defaults there. So some people may be comfortable buying a used car. But anyway, that aside, how would you really be able to bring the costs down, I'm wondering, if you're to produce here? Because have you heard of the Kira EV, by the way?
No.
A Uganda-made car.
No, I haven't actually. I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Well, it's very, very expensive. It's,
Really?
I think, about 40 or 50 million. It's a very small car, but the cost of production is too high. So you think if you were to do something in thicker, we in Uganda would be able to benefit from that?
Definitely, because look, Mabel, it's all about scale. It's all about size. So if we could take thicker and we could say, right, let's put it across the East African community and probably broaden that in time, cost per unit has to come down. But the question is, it's not necessarily in the pickup or the truck. What we want to do is get people into the small car. Their first car where they've left university, they've started a job, and they want to get to work on time, and they obviously want to feel proud of their purchase, and that's what we want to do.
Okay. As a leader, tell us more about your management style.
It's fast. It's definitely strategic and forward thinking. I found business in Uganda pretty easy to do. I'm happy in Uganda. I like the people. They're very welcoming. They're forgiving. And what we've got to do is drive positive change. So I'm really a micromanager with a strategic vision, but at a pace which everybody can cope with, because I think what we've got to do is we've got to reinvent the new car business here in Uganda. And it is a small market, Mabel. It is worth only around 4,000 units a year total. What we've got to ask ourselves is, if the relationship between used to new is 1 to 7, how can we convert some of those used car buyers into new car buyers? And the used car market here is significantly larger than the new car market, and it's something that we're obviously conscious of.
And I'm sure you're aware of websites like JapaneseCars.com, you know, where you can just sit at your desk or sit in your house, order a car, and then it goes up to Mombasa, and then you hustle from there, getting it from Mombasa up to here. But it's significantly cheaper. So I think one would really have to sell the benefits of having a new car, because at the end of the day, you know, like you said, everyone wants to know how much, you know, the extra buck can stretch. Yeah,
Mabel, we've made a conscious decision that we don't want to be a used car operator. We're a new car business, and we say to ourselves this, that yes, you can buy vehicles on websites. The question is, I think the consumer today is clever. The consumer wants to touch the car, feel the car, he wants to choose the colour. A lady that buys a car is into colours and alloy wheels. You know, the colour's more important sometimes than the car. And I think the days of buying vehicles on websites, I think the community is changing, and I think it's just a question of time, because look, Africa is explosive. It's just a question of when it catches up, and we predict that certainly by 2020, perhaps coming through to 2025, we will see the new car market certainly triple in size.
What is the average price of a small car that you're selling right now? Maybe a Suzuki Vitara or a Mazda?
Well, it's not cheap. You know, it isn't cheap, and you're absolutely right. You know, you're not going to get a change out of $35,000.
Is that what the price of your car is now? A Suzuki Vitara, let's say.
Yeah, I think
how much is it?
Well, I'm not 100% sure in Ugandan shillings, because I work in so many currencies, but it would be about $35,000.
That's over 100 million. Let me tell you.
Yes,
over 100 million shillings.
It is about 100 million shillings, but what you've got to look at is the whole life cost. So in other words, you buy the car today, you exit the car in 5 years, how much does it cost you in those 5 years? Because you can bring a used car, Mabel, and suddenly you're into a new gearbox, or you're into a whole set of tyres within the first month or two. You're not quite sure what you're buying. Has it been repaired? Has the chassis had a kink in it? On a new car, you can come back, you can have a discussion with us, we'll make you feel welcome, and we'll look after you. I think a lot of people want that today.
Okay. And you don't offer financing for it, do you?
Well, it's a great question, because what we're doing now is we're partnering with major banks in Uganda, and what we're saying is, how can I give some of my gross margin to the bank in order to facilitate the customer's deposit? Because ordinarily the monthly payment isn't the issue. The problem is the deposit, because typically banks today want anything between 25 and 35% deposit. Yeah, how can I give some of my gross margin away to help the customer get onto the new car ladder? We call it loss pool, and it's something that I'm discussing with Stanbic and other banks, because what I want to do is facilitate the new car purchase.
Okay. I do not know, probably people have told you, your colleagues here in Uganda, we like to drive, like I'll say it in quotes, number plates. We are very conscious about the number plates we drive, the average Ugandan. So right now, the cars that are being, the new cars, or the latest number plate is a USZ. Okay. So if I'm to buy a car, a new car, and you're saying it will last long, well, I'll have it, let's say, for 10, 15 years, but people will be telling me, oh, your car is old. It's a UAL, for instance, which was issued so many years ago. So that's why people prefer, I imagine, cheaper cars, which they can change often, because they will keep trending. Someone will look, oh, you're driving a UAZ, you're driving a UAY. I do not know. Are you aware of that?
No, I am,
and
I know that people are very superstitious, and I know that from certainly being in Kenya. But I will say this, Stu: changing your car 2 or 3 years, it's not like changing a dress. You know, there's a huge cost to change of car. Forget registration, but servicing, you've got to get acquainted with the vehicle, probably another lot of repair costs. Now, my view is very simple. What I want to do, Mabel, is I want to sell you a new car. I want to make sure that the servicing is included for 3 years. I want to make sure you've got a 3-year warranty, and all I want you to do is to put fuel in it. And then in 3 years' time, I want you to come back in, see me, let me buy your car, and you drive away my new car. That is where I want to get to.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It's very honest.
Very, very interesting. Let's talk about the tractors. Maybe we can have the pictures back on the screen. Whom are you targeting with those heavy-duty vehicles?
Well, the tractor is very synonymous here. Of course, agriculture is a very large part of what you do.
Yes.
And what we're saying is we want to now reach out to the rural places.
Yes.
The farmers that are not in Kampala, but of course the spans of the country and the size of it. Agriculture will always be the pride and joy of Africa. And what we're saying is, look, how do we get to those farmers? How do we look at seasonal payments? Because farming is very seasonal. Can we facilitate an interest-free period for perhaps 2 or 3 months, enabling them to get some cash in before they pay their monthly payments? So there's all sorts of quirky schemes we're looking for. Traditional way of selling cars, Mabel, is changing. And the key to selling cars is 2 things. It's scale to bring down price, and it's how we can facilitate the payment, both the deposit and equally then the monthly payment, because that is the key to new car sales.
So would you be going like to farmers' cooperations, or because ordinarily one farmer is definitely not going to afford those vehicles, the tractors that we see. So what's your strategy to reach out to the rural farmers?
It's a good question. We are going to SACCOs, we're going to large maternities that can facilitate a number of people. So what we can say is, right, to an organisation, we'd like you to buy 30 tractors. You know, the 30, 50, whatever it is, you know the farmers, you know, bring them in. But what we'll do is we'll bring them in collectively and offer them the same price and the same facilitation.
Okay, let's talk about tax. At least I know for some of the people who have imported cars, the tax you pay is almost double the price of the car. Look,
tax will always be an issue here, I think, and certainly, and I can speak for Kenya Fundly at the moment, we got slapped with a 20% excise duty on June the 8th in the budget. So what it meant is that a Kenyan shilling vehicle of 10 million shillings suddenly became 12 million shillings.
Because you transfer that cost to the...
It is, and you know, it's not welcome, because it doesn't help anybody at the end of the day. What we want to do is reduce traffic levels in Kampala. So, you know, there are many ways of thinking about that, but my view is this: as many people we can get onto the new car ladder will help the economy of Uganda. You've got good GDP, it's been very consistent under the government, you offer great prosperity to foreign investors. What we now want to say is, why don't Uganda take the lead in the change in automotive? And the only way that we can do it, Mabel, and I'll say it again, is to bring down the importation number of years, because if you bring it down, people will be forced down the new car channel, but what I've got to do is make sure that they can afford it.
Okay, so obviously there are very many car brands around. What are you doing as CMC to maintain your position? Well,
what we're doing is we're doing 2 things. We don't want to be the biggest. What we want to do is be the best. We're not into vanity, we're into sanity. So I believe that the brands that we've got collectively are some of the best in the country. They represent about a 15% market share. We're happy at that. Am I going to add another brand? Well, I can't tell you too much yet, but I'm looking at one. People going through a difficult time as we did, Mabel, they came and stole our lunch, and it's now time for us to go and eat their supper. So we're kind of preying on the vulnerable.
Okay, you don't want to give us too much, but yeah, just let us know, where do we see CMC in the next 10 years here in Uganda?
Look, CMC is, the reason we kept the CMC name is because there's a lot of association.
Cooper Motors.
Yes, Cooper Motor
Yeah.
Corporation. You know, there's a lot of generations that are acquainted to it, particularly, you know, people's in their 50s and their 60s. It was a legacy organisation. Yes, we lost our #1 position, Mabel, but look, you know, life's about a marathon, not a sprint. So what we're saying to ourselves is this: let's have sustainable growth. Let us bring more employment into Cooper Motor Corporation, which people want to hear. I'm proud to tell you that I've got a 98% Ugandan workforce. And that's how I want it to be. You know, why do I want to bring, you know, foreign talent into Uganda when I've got 40 million people to choose from? So what I've got to do is get the best people in my organisation and grow them. And I've got to keep running.
Wow, it seems you have a good motivated staff where you are.
Well, I'm an acquired taste, and they probably took a little bit of time to get used to me, but I think now that they know me, I think they believe that I'm looking after their long-term prosperity and, more importantly, their families.
Oh, okay. Doing business, you've talked a lot about East Africa. How do you find doing business in Uganda on average?
Well, I am pleasantly surprised. Not only is it an organised country, I was impressed when I came from Kampala. The streets are becoming cleaner by the day. It's got a great climate, of course. The airport's evolving, certainly with departures having a new bit to it. And you know, I see a new spring in the step of Uganda. Good economy, nice people. Yeah, we like Uganda.
Driving better cars.
Of course we want them to drive better cars, but that will come, Mabel.
That will come. Okay, we've got to end it here. But
Thank
what
you.
would you say to those watching now and who are like, okay, I want to give it a try. Let me try a new car.
Well, what I'd say is this: I will come out with some creative schemes to help the new car buyer. But the big thing that I've got to change is the perception about after sales, because after sales, at the end of the day, will sell the second, the third, and the fourth car. So what I've got to do is I've got to bring my parts prices down. I've got to bring my availability up, and I've got to make sure that the length of time someone's off the road is probably no more than an hour, because people need to be mobile, Mabel. You know, they haven't got the luxury of 2 or 3 cars. They need to be mobile straight away, and what they want to do is come in, have their car fixed, have a cup of coffee, and drive out. And that's what we want to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mark Cass
Thank
there,
you,
CEO of CMC Motors, saying doesn't really want to be the biggest, but he wants to be the best. So if you have never thought of buying a new car here in the Ugandan market, please visit CMC Motors. And I'm sure if you asked to see Mark, saying, I saw you on the morning show on NTV, and what you were proposing was very interesting, I'm sure he